All right, welcome everyone back to another live edition of Hey Fightin Podcast. As always, Cody Worsham, digital media reporter for LSU Athletics, joined today by passing game coordinator DJ Mangas. Before we get to Coach Mangas, I want to thank our friends at Assurance Financial. How long is halftime at an LSU football game? 20 minutes. How long does it take to complete a mortgage application? At Assurance Financial, you can apply for a mortgage in less time than halftime. Visit assurancemortgage.com, proud sponsor of LSU Athletics. All right, let's get to Coach Mangas now. DJ, what's going on? Welcome back to Baton Rouge, to Louisiana. As people start asking their questions, I'll kind of get us started. How's it been getting resettled, getting readjusted to life back in Baton Rouge?
Yeah, everything's been great. It's been a little bit easier. I know you guys just had Jake on. I would imagine than Jake. I was here in 19, so I'm very familiar with the setting. And as you know, the department here in ops, there's a ton of people, there's a ton of faces to get to know, let alone the players. And I've already had a head start on that, given there hasn't been many faces that have changed from that front. It's more so getting to know the young players, the players that weren't here. So that part's been the biggest challenge, which isn't really challenging at all. And so it's been, besides the fact that I don't have 6 kids to worry about, like it's been very smooth. I'm very excited to be back, to say the least.
Yeah, speaking from personal experience with just 2 kids, it makes a difference. So I can't even fathom 6. Like it blows my mind.
You wouldn't even be able to tell with Jake. I mean, he comes in here, he's the first one in the office. He's usually the last one to leave, and he's got the same type of juice and energy every day. So when I see that, and I'm a guy with no kids, and I see a guy with 6 kids bringing that same type of mentality every day, it's like, well, I better set myself up. So it's inspiring to say, to be around.
I felt the same way. Like I just asked him, the last question I asked him was what his favorite kids movie is to put on for the kids. And he was like, well, for Lent, we give up movies. And I was like, give up movies? That's like what I do to like get my kids to leave me alone. It's like, put on a movie. And he's like, yeah, we give it up. We're going to dig into it. So yeah, that's definitely inspirational. All right. We got a couple questions already coming in. Andres Valencia asked, and this kind of touches on what we were just talking about. What is the difference, the biggest difference or change you've noticed around the program from 2019 until now?
The biggest difference, I think the most obvious thing is just the faces, the players. I mean, we lost a lot of players, just like you do every year. And even though it's only been a year, we had a veteran crew. So there's a lot of new faces. But there's a lot that's similar. The way we run things, the way we just the daily routine. It's a lot of things that I'm very familiar with. I joke the biggest thing that I probably noticed beyond the players was the coffee machine that we have. Big time upgrade there. We got all the options, so that's been a big plus, a big bonus. But for the most part, it's been very, very similar just from the daily routine, which is anytime I think you walk into a new situation, you're trying to figure out your routine. Well, for me, it was pretty easy to figure that out. So it's made everything much, much smoother, I think, than a traditional transition like most have.
Give me the scoop on the coffee machine. Like, what are we talking, like a new Keurig? Is it like one with like cappuccino features? Like what's the upgrade there?
I don't know all the details. I know it's like a digital screen, and
nice.
You have all different kinds of options. I'm just a simple black coffee and that's it. But you don't have a pot. Usually there is a line. That's one of the downsides, but quick, pours right away, and you don't have to worry about refilling the pot. It's there ready to go. So it's the real deal.
All right. Caleb Payton in the chat says, I know it's super early and an impossible task in itself, but how close do you think we can come to approximating our 2019 offense with our current personnel? I'm sure you and Coach Peetz are going to get that a lot. And I find myself guilty of this too. And it's hard to compare present to past. It's just, it's different context, different situations, but it's also really easy to compare it, mostly because you were here and you were around, and y'all's ties to Coach Brady. So how do you approach that? And how do you, obviously everyone looks at that 2019 offense and puts it on the pedestal it deserves. How do y'all try to live up to that billing and try to recreate that?
Yeah. So I don't get so caught up in trying to duplicate. I mean, this is a different team. It's a different offense. It's different personnel. It's a different offensive coordinator. It's a different pass game coordinator. There's going to be a lot of similarities. That's for sure. The one thing I will say that I look back on is the 2018 team. I think if you look, and I know that the wins and losses were different, but if you look at some of the numbers that I think are important to look at as far as offensive production, those 2018 numbers were very similar as far as yards per carry, yards per attempt. I think even points. There were three that stood out to me compared to the 2020 offense. And then we brought in the offensive system we had in 2019 with that same talent. A lot of the guys were returning, and you saw what happened. It exploded. And I know this past season there were some similarities, but there were also some differences, some missing pieces, I think, within the offense that we will bring back and utilize this season. That when I look at the numbers from 18 to 19 and I see the change, I know from 20 to 21, I'm not saying it's going to be the same change, but I'm extremely optimistic to know that once we get those principles and those details in place, that this offense can do similar things and explode more than what we saw this past season.
Yeah, it's nice to have a roadmap or a precedent to look to. In the same vein, Nicholas Boudreau asked, "What did you learn from Coach Brady and Coach Ensminger in 19, and then with Coach Brady and Peetz in Carolina to help you in the role now at LSU?" I mean, you've been around a lot of great coaches in your time. What have you picked up from that trio in particular?
Well, I think with Brady, it was the biggest thing was the system. I mean, just learning that offense and learning the system and how it operates. I don't think there's a lot of people who try to duplicate, who try to do what we did in 19. But when you combine the Saints passing offense with what was essentially the Penn State and Saquon Barkley operation, and you mesh it into what we did, I think there's a lot of detail that is missing when people try to duplicate that. So I think our offense is second to none, and it's unique in its own. So I would say that's the biggest thing from Brady, and we remain best of friends. So there's a lot more to that. I think with Steve, it was there's a million different ways you can be a leader, and I think he showed me just the ultimate example of selflessness. As far as he was the offensive coordinator, and Brady brought in the system, and I don't think even putting myself in his shoes or seeing and observing other offensive coordinators that anyone would have said, hey, this is the best thing for LSU and this is the best thing for the LSU offense, and kind of letting Brady do as much as he did with the offense. And then going to Carolina, I think, with Jake is extremely, beyond the fact that he's able to do what he does with 6 kids. I mean, probably the biggest thing, just being the same guy each and every day with the same amount of energy. I think he's a great example there. But holding guys accountable, he's I think a lot of people in the profession, I'm guilty of it myself. You put in a standard in a lot of different ways with your players, whether it's in the classroom, on the field, or whatever it is. And some guys, I think down the road, you get tired, things start to pile up. You lose track of some of the stuff that you're trying to hold your players a standard to. Or you lose track of the standard that you're trying to hold the players to. And with Jake, that doesn't, you ain't going to see that with Jake. He's not going to let that slip. He is going to hold every single person, whether it's coaches, players, accountable to what we said we're going to do. And I think that's, there's something to be said for that. Speaking of leadership, I think that's one of his greatest qualities.
And I'm going to bring on Daniel Zollinger, who had a question in the Q&A. Daniel, you can unmute yourself and fire away.
Yeah, sure. Welcome back to LSU, DJ. So I was wondering who you thought is the wide receiver most poised to have like a breakout season this fall, kind of like we saw with Kayshon Boutte last year.
Yeah, I appreciate the question, Daniel. I'd like to think all of them. I even think Kayshon, for as good of a year as he had and as much as he broke out towards the end of the year, I think he's still just scratching the surface as far as his potential goes. I think there's a reason why in the first half of the year, obviously there were some injuries and some roster changes and things like that. And that's kind of why he was maybe a hidden gem, so to speak. But I still think he's scratching the surface. I think he's extremely raw, and that's something we're working on right now and developing him. But to think he was able to do what he did, with that being said, it gets me obviously pretty pumped up to get a chance to work with him moving forward. I think when you look at Kayshon, Coy Moore and Trey Palmer and Jaray Jenkins, those guys, they've jumped off the page as far as guys that maybe production wise didn't necessarily see the numbers, but I see a lot of potential with them. I like the way they're working. And they're guys that we're going to find ways to get them in space. I mean, that's a big part of the offense is speed and space. And that's what those guys have. So I think with those guys and really the rest of the crew, the expectation is high. And I think just the production in general across the board, you will see jump. But those are just some names that have stood out in particular so far.
DJ, I got one for you. A lot of people know that you and Coach Brady are close. Can you kind of give us the history of your friendship, how you guys met, how you became close and sort of have evolved together as coaches?
Yeah. So I went to William & Mary, which is Mike Tomlin, Sean McDermott, amongst others, just in the football world. That's where they went to school as well. And I was a freshman in 2007, and Brady's a year younger than me. And he transferred in from Air Force. I believe it was 2008 of the spring semester. He did a semester at Air Force, transferred, and immediately we clicked. Anybody that asks, like, maybe what's the connection or why'd you guys click so well? It's football. I mean, it's as simple as that. So we became pretty close then. We were both receivers. I went back and forth between quarterback, receiver. And then once we got in the coaching profession, it was just that much more in common. He likes to, and actually he jokes, but when I was coaching at Georgetown in DC, he was, I think, the first coach that was hired straight from college as a student to be a coach at William & Mary. Our head coach asked him if he thought I would do a good job as a coach at William & Mary. And jokingly, Brady said I'd put my career on the line for him. And he'd only been coaching for a few months at that time. So, of course, I'm going to say something like that. But you'd have to ask him the story. He knows it a little bit better than me. But from there, we obviously coached together for a year there. He went to Penn State, and then we reconnected, stayed in touch since then, and we reconnected at LSU. And then I went to Carolina with him, and now I'm back here, and we talk a couple times a week. He's doing well, by the way, if anybody's wondering. So it's that's kind of been the road, the path. It's been pretty cool to kind of see how it's unfolded for both of us.
Another fan question. Bob Florich asked, what was the biggest football factor that drew you back to LSU from the NFL?
Well, I think the opportunity to, one, knowing the situation here and knowing the people, the fan base, how good this program can be, how good this offense can be. I don't care necessarily what the title is. If you're not walking into the right situation with the right people, or what the job, the job responsibility is, if you don't have that in place, I think it's pretty tough to want to take that, whatever that opportunity is. So that was the first thing, the foundation that is set here, and knowing the things that we can accomplish here and just seeing it firsthand. 15-0, one of the greatest teams, if not one of the, if not the greatest team or greatest offense. The foundation that Coach O has laid out is that's hard to beat. And then obviously the responsibility of being pass game coordinator. I think that opportunity in itself is something at a place like this that is pretty special. So I think it was pretty easy for me to, when looking at everything all together.
DJ, what was your favorite memory from the 2019 season? It could be a big moment. It could be a small moment that happened away from the cameras. It could be the confetti falling at the national championship. What kind of sticks out to you as favorite memories from that year?
There's a lot. Brady asked me, we were talking the other day, and I think there was like an ESPN question going around, like, when you think of this team, whether it's, the 2011 William & Mary team versus the 2019 LSU team, what moment stands out? And for whatever reason, I know most people will probably say the 3rd and 17 against Texas. They will say some way, shape, or form the Clemson game. For me, it was the Florida game. The pass to Jamar Chase. It was basically a dagger to seal the deal, and I think that was the first game beyond the Texas game, SEC play, where we were like, oh yeah, this team is real, and this team is here to play, and they're going to be a national title contender. So for me, it was that, and then I think just anytime during a game, anytime we'd score, regardless of the score, it was just like as simple as crazy, just the little things, a fist bump with Brady and Steve. Anytime we scored, it was, I don't know, just thinking about it or seeing it on highlights or whatever it is, gives me chills just thinking about the work you put in, the time you put in, and that's what it's for. It's for those moments. So I would say that's off the top of my head what stands out.
That play y'all ran for Jamar to score against Florida, jog my memory. Y'all ran that again in a big moment.
Alabama.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's what it was. What with Clyde, and Clyde kind of runs the rub action on the outside.
Good memory.
Yeah. Bring that one back. That one worked.
So yeah, no, it's back. It's back. No, we basically it's just if you see the coverage that we like, there's a specific coverage we're looking for. We will call that play. It's an empty play, and we freed up. The first time it was a little bit easier against Florida, and how could I forget the Alabama game? I mean, coming back to the airport, there were more people at the airport after beating Alabama than when we came back. Obviously, we didn't fly in the national championship, but just the meaning of that game. And I thought I knew what it meant to beat a team like Alabama, but to follow it up with that and, just to see the reaction pulling out of the facility was, again, that just adds to what makes this place so special. But Joe had to make a little bit of a more accurate throw on the one against Alabama. He dropped a dime to Jamar. Jamar made a catch, but no, that play is back.
Yeah, the airport was my favorite memory from that season. That was an unbelievable moment. All right, enough looking at the past. We'll go back to the past for one question here from James Dubois. He said, seeing Miles really move the ball well last year before his injury, what do you expect from him in this year? We saw Miles Brennan for 3 games last year. He looked great. He got hurt and couldn't go the rest of the season. But what are y'all's expectations for him coming back and kind of getting back in the groove this season?
Yeah, I think, and Jake could probably speak to it more, but I'd say the biggest thing right now, we're without a ball, it's leadership. He's been here for a while. He knows what it takes. He knows what we're looking for, maybe more so than some other guys, but I'd say that's the biggest thing. And just being a competitor and leading by example, which all ties into leadership. But I'd say that's the biggest thing. And I think if he does that, and he competes, regardless of who ends up being the quarterback, we're going to end up with the right guy because he's going to push the other guys and they're going to push him, and it's going to mold whoever it ends up being into a quarterback that's going to lead us to a lot of yards, a lot of points, and a lot of success.
In a similar vein, Ricky Tucker had asked, how much weight will you put on the quarterback's performance last season, deciding the starter, stats, ability, winning record? I'm not going to ask you to name a starter. I'm not really going to ask you to hash that out with us, but I am curious. I asked Coach Peetz the same question, and I'll ask you. To me, and I've seen a lot of LSU quarterback rooms growing up in Baton Rouge, this is as deep and talented of one that's been here. I mean, I even when Joe was here, obviously he was incredible, but you've got 3 guys for sure that we've seen get the job done in the game, and another in Garrett Nussmeier, who a lot of people have really high expectations for, and he's impressed a lot of people. How is that room? How are you seeing that room develop? And I know it's early, but just the balance of personalities and skill sets and in that room with all those guys.
Well, we've been without a ball, so we're 100% completions at this point. So that's good.
Awesome.
But no, I would say just like Miles, the rest of them competitors. And the fact that in last season it is clean slate, but there are some things just taken into account, just seeing them make decisions, talking through what they were thinking, using that tape. There's value to it. Just seeing where their mind was at last season compared to where we are now. But I know, and again, it's leadership at this point. It's seeing them compete. And again, Jake is he holds us all to a high standard, and he's extremely good with accountability. And that's one thing I've noticed with the quarterbacks in particular, is challenging them and then seeing them respond. And all of those guys, as you said, capable players in the SEC. 3 of them have shown it. I think they've all stepped up to the challenge up to this point, and it's not by any means an easy challenge, but it's good to see those guys respond and show that competitive nature and show a little bit of edge. I think a lot of guys look at the quarterback position, and anybody that knows Joe Burrow, they may see the quarterback as the All-American guy and Mr. Nice Guy and whatever it may be, whatever the perception is. But Joe Burrow, to say the least, probably the edgiest person on that roster last year, and you weren't going to mess with him. And I think that's where we're trying to go with these guys, and that's what we're trying to get out of them. And Jake is, I don't know if you can see it in Jake, he's got a little edge to himself, himself. And I think that's the direction, the path we're going down with those guys. And I think that's something you want in every quarterback.
I like that description of Joe, edgy. That's a perfect description for Joe Burrow.
No doubt.
Let's go to. Oh, I'm sorry. I clicked the wrong person. Sorry, Tom. Didn't mean to go to you. Pardon my clumsy technology skills here. I was trying to go to Tracy Evans, who asked a question question in the chat. Tracy, if you want to unmute yourself, putting you on the spot here, and you can ask Coach Mangas your question. And if you don't want to unmute yourself,
actually, there you go. This is actually Tracy's husband. So
there you go.
Yeah,
does Tracy's husband have a name?
Yeah, I was Lamar. My name is Lamar. Yeah,
how you doing, Lamar?
So no, I was curious whenever y'all are putting together game plans, and I don't know if it's different between the college game and pro. How much of it is based upon the defense team, which I'm sure that's a big part, but also how much is
he went out on me. I heard the first part of the question, I think.
Yeah, I'll just recap the question. Basically, Lamar was asking, when you're putting together a game plan, how much is based on defensive scheme and how much is based on defensive personnel, and then also kind of a comparison with game planning with college and NFL.
Okay, so in 2019, I'll use that as an example, and then I'll compare that with Carolina. And there will be some definite similarities, obviously, from 19 to 21. But in 19, we were all basically 3 wide receivers. So when you game plan and you're looking at a defense from that, they're probably going to have the same personnel out there, typically 5 DBs. Although when teams figured out they couldn't stop us, they decided to throw 6 out there and 7 out there. And I don't know if you guys remember the Auburn game, but they did some funky stuff. I think they had 7 DBs out there, a good portion.
Stack those linebackers, yeah.
Stack the linebacker. I mean, it was some stuff. I'm up in the box like, what are they doing? Took a couple possessions to figure it out, but if you guys remember the second half, we decided, all right, if these guys want to play 7 DBs, let's force them to stop the run, and we got into men's formations, and we were able to run it. So, but beyond that stuff, personnel wise, what the defense does, you're probably going to see the same defensive personnel. So for us, it was what coverage structure and what defensive fronts do they play? What's their most popular stuff? And then what are their curveballs? And for us, we know our answers ahead of time. So if they're a cover 2 team, okay, cool. Here's our cover 2 answers. Let's have these ready. If they're a cover 3 team, here's our cover 3 answers. Let's have these ready. And then if they show a curveball, which we got a good chunk of the second half of the season, all right, they're a cover 3 team, but this week they're showing man free. All right, well, we already know our man free answers. So regardless of the prep we put in the week leading up, we could spend our whole week preparing for cover 3 and see something completely different, which is what happened in 19. We already have our answers ready. It's just a matter of maybe taking a couple of possessions to figure out exactly what they're doing. And then obviously coaching that stuff up leading up to that point. So our players, we haven't practiced it all week, but we can go to those plays because our players have put in the preparation and time, and we feel comfortable doing it. As far as Carolina goes, we did a bunch of different personnels. So when you're game planning as a coach, now you get into a fullback tight end set, or you get into a 2 tight end set. Now you're looking at a completely different personnel for the defense. Sometimes defenses switch it up there. So there's a little bit more to it. Then that can kind of alter your scheme. And a lot of the stuff we did in Carolina, we put it on the quarterback's plate, Teddy Bridgewater's plate. Whereas here, we're still going to ask a lot out of the quarterbacks, but a lot of the stuff we do is check from the box. So that was probably the biggest difference, was the multiple personnels that we had to scheme for. And you have more time, and you have players that's all they do. There's no academics and things like that. So it's you have time to do it in the NFL. Hopefully that answered your question, but that's, to me, the biggest difference is when it comes to game planning.
We had 2 questions from Julian Oquan. Which incoming freshman are you most looking forward to? And then what's your favorite Coach O story? I'm going to make the question easier, the first one easier. I'm not going to make you pick one because we're not going to play favorites. But who are some of the young guys that you're looking forward to getting in, and just the process of getting them in general and working them in, especially in a weird year like this where, we're still kind of dealing with the back end of this pandemic, but still not back to normal. And then I'm also filibustering, so you can think of your favorite Coach O story. That's safer.
I appreciate that. Every day with Coach O, I think there's usually a pretty good moment or story. He's all energy. Him and Jake mesh well. I think just him walking up and down the hallways, basically letting everyone know he's in the building and he's in the hallway is, you better get your mind right that today we're going to put some work in, and you better have some juice to be ready for the players when they come in. I'd have to think about a favorite specific story, but that's to me every day with him is I look forward to. It keeps you on your toes, that's for sure. But as far as what was the other part of the question?
The incoming freshmen who are some of the
freshmen,
young guys you're looking forward to.
Yeah, so all of them. I mean, all of them. But I'll talk about the receivers a little bit. Malik Neighbors, Jack Bash, Chris Hilton, Deion Smith's already here. Brian Thomas, the new commit that we just got. I think all those guys are players that will be able. We're going to push to try to get to contribute pretty quickly. And I think with this offense, that's another bonus to the offense. It's versatile, so it's tough on defenses, but it's simple for the players. So I'd like to think that's why freshmen can come in and contribute pretty quickly. But all those guys are going to be expected to compete early on. I think there's some versatility with all of them. I think there's some versatility. I think with Jack, especially just seeing he's more of the physical type, seeing what he can do there. Deion Smith is already here, just being able to see what he can do. He's obviously someone that we have high expectations for, and we're going to push to compete very early on. But those other three as well, I think all of them, if they pick it up quick enough, they're going to have a chance to get out there early on and really contribute to an already deep receiving core. So those are the guys that, especially because I'm more geared towards the receivers. Obviously, I have the passing game, but those guys in particular, I think I'm looking forward to really challenging and seeing how our guys on this current roster respond to those guys challenging them as well.
Yeah, DJ, last year we didn't get a normal spring practice. I think they went out there once or twice and that was it. Hopefully this year we'll look a little bit more normal and you get a full spring in. What are the goals? What are the objectives? Still a couple of weeks out from spring getting started, but I know that's what y'all are gearing to and preparing for right now. So what are some of the goals ahead?
Well, I think it's easier said than done, but the standard of high effort, high energy, is the biggest thing, and ball security, understanding the importance of those things. Cause those things, again, like I said, the standard that is set, it's easy to do the first few days, the first few weeks. But that's, again, one of Coach Peetz's, I think, biggest strengths is holding guys to a high standard and keeping it that way and making sure we are on top of them always. So I think if you can get that out of your players, out of a group of players that's already extremely talented, you're going to maximize your talent. If you got guys that don't give great effort, I mean, you're not going to get it's buying into what we're doing. It's getting them to buy into what we're doing. And if you can do that, you will maximize your talent. And if they buy into what we're doing, which they will, and we get great effort out of them, which we will, the rest of it will take care of itself. We are going to put them in position to succeed. I think as far as like a schematic X's and O's thing, it's just being detailed. If I ask Keyshawn Boutte to get up on the board and teach me a concept, he shouldn't just be able to show me what the X has on this play. He should be able to teach me what the X has in detail, 2 or 3 bullet points, and then also what the Y, the tight end, the F, and the Z have as well. So I think getting them to that point as well is going to be a goal as well.
Yeah, I remember Kirk Herbstreit being here, I think before the college football playoff, and after he talked with some of the players and Joe, and one of his comments was, this is the smartest football team I've ever been around, because all those guys could do that. They couldn't just, they wouldn't just explain the play, right, with their role. They would explain the concept. And it seemed like everyone on that offense had a big picture concept. So hopefully you guys can get that instilled in this group as well. I got one more for you. So, and then we'll wrap up. Coach Brady did the summer of 10,000 catches. That was one of the more popular stories that I wrote that fall before things got wild. Do you have any big plans like that for projects or tasks? And if you don't, may I suggest like the summer of 11,000 catches and you can just kind of one up them, just beat them?
No, I'm with you 100%. We're actually, so that was a big message to our guys. I think, again, if you look at 2018, I believe we had 1 drop for every 8 catches. Mm-hmm. And then if you look at 2019, I think we had 1 drop for every 20 catches. And the message to these guys right now, I asked them, did you guys do 10,000 catches last year? And the answer was no, or not to that extent.
Yeah.
And so it's easy for me to point out the numbers don't lie. Okay, what did these guys do from 18 to 19? Well, obviously they spent a lot of time with the quarterbacks and getting on the same page with Joe and Miles then, but 10,000 catches speaks for itself. And if you guys weren't doing that, so this year, I think, so I said, and then 2020, they had, I think it was 1 1 drop for every 6 catches. So they went 1 for every 8 catches to 1 for every 20, back down to 1 for every 6. So we're doing 5,000 catches right now from when I got here. I think we had 50 days from the time that we started doing it. So that's 100 balls a day between now and spring ball. So that's on their own time. They've got to go ahead and do it and take the initiative. And then I think once we're through spring ball, we'll bring back we'll one up Brady and we'll go with the 11,000.
There you go. All right. That'll get the job done. All right. We'll wrap it up, Coach. Appreciate your time today. To everyone that came in and asked questions and listened, thank y'all as well. And Coach, appreciate your time.
Appreciate you guys. Appreciate the questions, the time, and go Tigers.